hey there, gin drinkers, workers, poets and deep thinkers. Everyone's welcome here on No Nonsense Gin.
No nonsense gin drinking. All gin, no nonsense.
Hello gin lovers, welcome back. I am Bobby Freeman. I think I just broke my desk there, but never mind. This is No Nonsense Gin Drinking, and today, my friends, feast your eyes upon this very interesting little fellow, which is Kalki Moon Classic Gin. Now, the reason I say it's an interesting gin is, well, number one, it's an Australian gin, and we know that I'm a big fan of the Australian gins on this show. In fact, it was sent in by one of my subscribers and my first ever patron, Mr. Craig Stower, so thanks then again for that, Craig. And the second reason, I'm actually going to hold back tantalizingly at the moment and tell you a bit later on. But before we get going, I must thank another one of my subscribers who has become one of my patrons and an official supporter of the show, because it's been quite sad recently because I lost 3 patrons last month, so very sorry to see you go, guys. However, I would like to say welcome and congratulations to, now I've got to get this pronunciation right. How ironic, I can't even pronounce the word pronunciation. But her name is Mareike, I think. Mareike. Yeah, Mareike from Germany. So Mareike, thank you very much for becoming one of my patrons and an official supporter of the show. I am forever in your debt and I salute you. Right, my friends, let's crack on and see what they say on the website about this little fellow, shall we? And of course, yes, in a time-honoured tradition, I shall be doing it in the Australian accent because it's an Australian gin. And yes, I shall be breaking out once more the hat, which has become a long-running and rather boring joke now. But it is, I think it's nice that I honour the Australian people because this is what every single Australian wears every day. Kalki Moon Classic Gin is the everyday gin in the KM family. Crafted with the same quality and skill as our premium liquid, the Classic is reduced in ABV and contains the classic London dry base of juniper, coriander, angelica root, cardamom and lemon myrtle. Now, I don't know if you spotted there, but that's the reason that this gin is rather interesting. It's because it is a reduced ABV, okay? I can tell you now, it is in fact 37% ABV, which then the reason, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that's not particularly interesting, Freeman. However, hold on to your horses because technically a gin has to be at least 37.5% ABV to be considered a gin. So the reason I find this so interesting is, technically speaking, if you want to be geeky about it, and I do, technically it's not actually a gin. And it's certainly the weakest one we've ever had on this show. However, I think it's good to review it anyway because sometimes maybe you don't want to get, well, to use an Australian term, completely shit-faced. And it's nice to know that there is an option out there if you want to take it a bit easy. So then, let's get the old top off, shall we? No cork by the looks of it today, so we can't do a cork test. Never mind. So then, in the old glass and do the sniff test. So this is going to be quite interesting. Is it going to be a strong smell? Is it not? Because I don't... Oh, that's answered the question for me because I meant to mention when I read out the botanical, the lemon myrtle, that I reckon, I don't know for sure, but that's something that only Australian gins seem to have. And I've said this a few times when I've featured Australian gins. I reckon that is the secret. That's the key to what makes the Australian gins so good. So let's have a little... Do you know what, actually, I got the first whiff of it and it was quite sort of citrusy down to, again, I think that lemon myrtle, but it is a little bit less on the aroma. Sometimes when I sniff them and I really stick the old nose in and give it a real good sniff, it makes me cough slightly, which I always say is a good sign, but let me just try it out. Yeah, you have to really sniff, and I get a tiny tickle, but not to the point of the cough yet. So, my friends, let us waste no more time. Let's marry it up with the tonic. And I didn't put very much in there, did I really? So let's whack a bit more in if this is a little bit less strong. So we're definitely going to try and neat it as well. But first of all, the old classic gin and tonic. Only a tiny bit in there. So here we go, my friends. Kalki Moon Under Strength Gin. Cheers. Wow, so there's the cough we're looking for. I would say there is slightly less flavours than most other gins, most other Australian gins, I should say, that I've tried. Because the one thing I've loved about the Australian gins, they've just been thick and laden down and heavy with flavours, like your Melbourne Gin Company up there, the Four Pillars up there. What else have we got? The Ink Gin over there. We had Billy Goat's Gin. Every single one of them have just had this beautiful sort of thick fog, like cloud of sort of flavours in the aroma and in the taste as well. This one, I'd say, is about 60%, no, sorry, that's the wrong way around, about 40% less in flavourage, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure flavourage is not even a word, yet I used it anyway, but it's because it seemed to make sense. It's certainly not by any means a bad gin, but the reason I'm sort of faltering a little bit here is because Australian gins have set that bar high. I mean, really, really high. So I'm sort of holding it to the standards of the other Aussie gins. So let's not mess around. Let's have a go neat, shall we? So this should be I imagine it to be quite sort of smooth, sort of maybe slightly easier to drink neat than other gins. Let's give it a go. Yep, I'm right, definitely. It doesn't have that sort of, that snap, that bang, that sort of crash and sort of sharp flavour, the burn basically that alcohol, the stronger ABV gins would give you. But that's basically what you'd expect, really. So to sum up, it's kind of a tricky one, really, I'd say this, because yes, technically it is not a gin, but to me, does it taste like one? I'd say yes, it still tastes like a gin, but to me, it's just kind of had a little bit sort of taken away from it, a little bit too much. It's not to the point where it's unpleasant, but I don't think, compared to the other Australian gins, the ones that Craig has sent to me, it's not kind of hitting that bar in the way they do. However, though, on the flip side, the trump card, the party piece of this gin is, as I said earlier, if perhaps you're working the next day or you've got to get up early or something and you want to have some gins with friends, but you don't want to feel like shit the next day, maybe you might pip for the old Kalki Moon. So as much as it's not, you know, absolutely wham bam like the other Australian gins, isn't it handy to have an option like that, to know that you've got on hand, you know, just in case you didn't want to get absolutely smashed and have an absolutely awful hangover. So then the big question is here, if it's lower on the ABV, is it lower on the price? Because you'd like to think it would be. And my friends, I can confirm that is exactly the case, because as I've said before, Australian gins, my Aussie friends down under, they get hammered on the price of gin. It's very expensive. But this little fellow is a very pocket-friendly 46 Australian dollars, which works out as equivalent of, I don't think it's available over here, I think it's only available in Australia, but it works out an equivalent of £25, 32 US dollars and 28 euros, which is absolutely bang on. In fact, to be honest, I think you can get stronger gins than that, like the old Beefeater, for quite a bit cheaper, but I think it should have come if it's sort of an understrength gin, because I've never seen a gin sort of sold as an understrength gin before. I think perhaps they could have come a little bit lower. But anyway, certainly not going to break the bank by any means. So my friends, a rather curious little gin today, and that's the whole reason I hope you agreed with me why it was rather interesting and worth featuring on the show. I wonder, it makes me think, maybe some of the mainstream gins might bring sort of a lower version out as well, just to give people that option. Who knows? There we go. If Beefeater, if you're watching and you want to do that, then it's my bloody idea. Sod off or give me some money for it. Anyway guys, if you found this video informative or you enjoyed it or it was useful in any sort of, or educational in any way, I'll be very surprised. But if by some miracle you did, then please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and press the little like button on the video. And if you want to support the show like Marike did, oh God, I hope we got that right, then please head over to my Patreon page as well. And of course, you can also now press the little join button below this video to become one of my YouTube No Nonsense Gin members. But until next time, guys, you know the drill. Take care, stay safe. Thank you to all my patrons and YouTube members, and keep drinking the gin.